So very simple. Don't be a freelancer. Basically, I'd say that's the I can leave actually. It should be easier. But little bit about me would be basically that I've been a freelancer for about 15 years. Bounced around London, Australia, different places really. And let's see if this works. Boom, boom. It does. What do you want? Cool. So basically just been working around in different teams. Kind of like finding myself in very weird situations, and you're always in weird situations when you're a freelancer. You're always going from one team to another. You never know what's going on. It's always a little bit of it's a roller coaster. So that's actually why I like it. It's crazy. So you really have no idea. So that's kind of really that really. So let's start off with the actual points. Let's go number one. So as I said, don't be a freelancer. It's like I've tried to make my friends, my colleagues, freelancers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it kind of just comes down to boom. There you go, Sheldon. Where are you? There you go. There you go. I don't think it's going to work, but basically, is that when you're being a freelancer, you need to think very differently from being a perm person. So permanent employment freelancers. And it's kind of the things that I've tried to make my friends and my colleagues freelancers, and some of them, they get it, and some of them, they just don't want to put the work in. They literally just want to do their project, be a designer, and focus on, well, a creativity story, really. They don't want to do more. So it's not for everybody. That's the really short one. And then the positive side, because I can't all be negative, is that remember that when you are a freelancer and when you're going into a company, that you're not a perm person. You actually are trying to represent yourself. You're trying to show that you are in control, because quite often, if they need a freelancer, they're in trouble. They either like, think of it like being a firefighter. The project is either delayed, they don't have the staff, they don't, basically they just don't, they're just not in control. So, and they can't find the people permanently, so they need to solve a problem quickly. And that's what actually the freelancer is all about, is actually going in and helping a company, a product owner quite often, or a product manager, can't say product owner, and actually trying to get their project running, because it's often may have derailed quite badly, actually. It kind of reminds me some of the stories that when I have gone into companies and you get personal issues where people have quit and they've just like flipped their desk and just left. And you walk in and you have no idea about any of this politics. And you're thinking, wow, this is very strange, but I've got to do a project. So it's kind of it's a bit weird. So, but sometimes, like, no 2 days will kind of be the same. So you kind of have some benefits there. So, yeah, as I said, you're not an employee, but you're free. You're free to fail, and you're free to succeed. So what you do is really up to you. It's like every time you start a project, the first thing I've always said is that literally the first task you're trying to do is build that connection. You've got to build a connection with the product manager very quickly. You've got to get the devs on side. You've really got to build that little trinity to actually get that project back on the rails, because you don't know what's happened before you, but something has happened before you. So building trust, as I said, developer, product owner, manager, sorry, owner. You've got to get that right quickly, because if you lose their trust, you're fired. Simple as that. So they will kick you out. So, and might have happened, but that's really the most important thing, is that you want that project has gone wrong, and you are the person to bring it back on track. So you need to get them on side, really. Is that you can do that with coffee, you can do that with alcohol, you can do that with just talking to them, you can do that with trying to speak their language. Like if you speak French, Spanish, that'll get you quite far by just having that personal connection. But you really need to get them on side, so when they eventually Understand the dynamic of the product. Yeah, basically, yeah. It's basically just understanding that you need to find a way to connect and quickly. And that's something that I've been relatively quite good at, because the more languages you speak, the more coffee you drink, the more alcohol you drink, but the things, it brings people together. And you might be the alien in that room, but you need to bring everyone together. So the next, basically being organized is that most projects end. And I find a lot of freelancers, they don't really understand that one thing ends and another one should start. But if you haven't read your contract to know when your project is going to end, you don't know whether to ask them like a month in advance, saying, "Hey, are you going to renew this, or is that it?" Because if that's it, you've now got effectively 2 weeks, and that's quite often in the contracts, to find a new project. And that's where your network really comes into action, is that you need to constantly be talking to people and building networks and creating. LinkedIn's your friend, basically, is that you just need to be every single day talking to people, finding people. You don't even necessarily want to work for them. You just want to talk to them. And by that, you eventually, basically, you're going to start creating a schedule. Is that you can say, do I want to work 6 months in a year? Do I want to work 12 months in a year? Do I want to do 2 projects at the same time? What do I want to do? So you're free, but as I said, you've got to organize yourself. You've got to find out why, maybe why they're not renewing the project, or why they will renew the project. And that, if they do renew the project, how much do they need you? It's like, have they found a perm person? Like, can you negotiate your rate? And these kind of things. So, boom, all right, there you go. Yeah, lastly, I had a recruiter speak to me last week, is that saying UX designers, they're dime a dozen, like just generic. They're not really that interesting. But what he was talking about, he was saying website people. People would just make websites, and you need to try and be a bit more like a specialist. It's like, why would they hire you? Okay, it's like basically they don't really want to hire you because you're a freelancer. You cost them more, but you solve a problem quicker. So it's all about like balancing. Is that if they can find a perm person to help you, or to help themselves do the project quicker, they will do that. But if you have a specialist skill that's quite niche, maybe like IoT or AI or these kind of emerging kind of spaces, then you can start saying, fine, I am a specialist in this subject, and call me if you've got those projects. But that's a gamble. So you've got to kind of balance your gambles effectively. So generalist, specialist. Don't be a jack of all trades. So I think maybe at the start, it's quite helpful to kind of like want to know on different sides of projects, like whether you just want to do UI or UX or interaction design, or you want to be a prototyper. But then like bouncing around in different industries, the more industries you can get your hands into, the more you'll be able to say, oh, that was really good in gambling and that works well for NGOs. I've done that trick and it actually works. So yeah. So what is it? Create yourself. Yes. Okay. So an admin routine. When you're a freelancer, unfortunately, you've got to deal with taxes. Like you've got to, as I say, it goes back to reading your contracts. At the start, I never used to read my contracts, so I was always very surprised when things went not quite how I expected. But by reading these contracts and then knowing what an accountant is and how to deal with your taxes and when they should be paid, it's relatively quite easy. And my friends who didn't want to do that, they just didn't want to read anything. They literally just wanted to have a check every single month. But they're not necessarily free to fail or succeed, I should say. So it's like when your books are popping. Exactly. When everything is organized, it's actually relatively easy to get things moving, and then you can start planning your year. How many projects do you want to do? Like, what kind of things are you really interested in? So balancing, yeah. So these days, when I first started in London, the expectation was to go into the office and sit at a desk and do that. That's obviously no longer the case. But the expectation of coming to the office was because the people employing you thought you were a perm. They were thinking, okay, 9 to 5 every single day. You might have a different contract, but they thought you were perm. And now things have changed so much that you can start saying, okay, I don't have to go there every single day. So that means you can start doing other things. That if you can juggle your projects, you can start actually being a bit more creative and a bit more like exploratory in what kind of projects that you're into. But again, it takes organization, because it's like, yeah, just need to be organized. So that goes back to those relationships, is that whether those client relationships are part of your team or whether they're building client relationships exterior to that, it's super important to just connect with people. And even if you're not looking for a project, connect with people, talk to people, find out what's going on. It's like, so the variety, that it comes down to you really, is that if you just want to work on AI, be that specialist. If you just want to work in health tech, just do that. But if you want to bounce around in different industries, that's something you can do, and no one will look bad. It won't look bad on you. You'll just be able to understand different people and different organizations quicker. Because one of the worst things is that they will not give you a project. If you don't have fintech in your portfolio, they will not give you fintech. So it's kind of like, it's an egg and chicken problem, that you make your portfolio what you want it to be or what people want to think about you, and that means the project will come to you because it's in your portfolio. But it's not always easy. So yeah, let's go on to that. So dealing with the uncertainty. London's hard. London's definitely got much harder to be a freelancer in. But there's normally a bit of a rhythm to the year, is that finding a job or finding a project in January, maybe not the best idea. Finding a project in April, possibly a better idea. It depends how the tax system works, and when the actual money for the companies is there to actually find a freelancer. So again, it's just, you can manage the uncertainty. It's not that kind of like crazy to know that, okay, here's my year and you're in January, and you can kind of like figure it out after a while. Let's go about that one. And yeah, sorry about that. So lastly, I spoke about portfolios. When I was at university, they never told me anything about portfolios. And I really hope that universities now, they teach you how to make a portfolio, because it took me like comically 8 versions of a portfolio, and I had no idea what I was doing. It's kind of really bad, where my university, they taught me how to be a designer, they taught me how's that, but they didn't teach me anything else. And they certainly didn't teach me how to make a portfolio. So it doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, I make sure that my portfolio now has errors in it and has mistakes, because if your portfolio is too perfect, they're going to ask, well, you've got too much time on your hands. It needs to have a few things. Oh, sorry, I've been on a project, I'll get around to fixing that. It's kind of a helpful trick. That's really kind of about that. One thing I would say I mentioned about portfolio is that start writing. Even if no one reads your articles, like when you are looking for a project and someone shows you, you may not have the experience, but if you write about what you want to do, the project will come. It's kind of like, really is egg and chicken, and it's just about trying to find ways to show people that you can get onto a project and you'll be fine. And that's not always easy. So start writing. And another thing I would say about portfolios is that portfolios is not about imagery, it's about a story. It's like, you need to create a story, basically. It's a story about what you did in this project, how it went, what did you do. They, like recruiters and people who are hiring you, they want to know who you are, what kind of person you are you going to be in a bit of an arse to work with, and can they actually give you the project. So the more you can write, the more that you can write in your portfolio and actually explain the process, the more comfort you give them. And it's generally just makes life a bit easier, to be honest. So if you have a portfolio that is just images and looks gorgeous, even if you're going after a visual designer role or a digital designer or something like that, where it's just visual, they're not going to know anything about you. And I think the freelancer ultimately is that they're hiring you. They're not necessarily just hiring your work. So you kind of need to show them a little bit of personality. So that is that, actually. So I'm a little bit quicker than I expected.